You're listening to the It Ain't Wrong to Be Strong podcast series brought to you by RAMMFIT Athleisure, the unapologetic voice of the modern masculine revival. I'm Rob James, the founder of RAMMFIT Athleisure. I'm a martial artist, a strategist, and builder of men. This podcast series is not for the weak, the whiners, the whingers, or the ones who bow down to the world's expectations. This is for the men who walk the harder path, the warriors, the leaders, the ones who know comfort is a killer and discipline is the way out. Here we talk about strength, not just physical, but mental, emotional, and spiritual. We sharpen the sword of the mind, we break generational curses, and we crush the victim mindset. If you're ready to reject mediocrity, forge your purpose, and live with a code, then you're in the right place. It ain't wrong to be strong, and it never will be. Now let's get to work. In today's episode, I want to talk about the endless pursuit of Omega, and it's something that I talk about quite a lot, whether it's on this podcast series. I know that I've mentioned it quite a few times in the past. It's something that I talk about in my Substack articles, so if you're looking to get some interesting reading in, check out Mr. RAMMFIT at on Substack. I talk about it in my social media posts, whether it's my own private Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, places like that. I've even spoken about it on LinkedIn. Get attacked. You know what it's like on there. The LinkedIn elite get on board and they think that, it's not Facebook. And, it's like, piss off. Anyway, it's quite funny on there. That's a completely different world. But anyway, I talk about it quite a lot when I'm coaching and mentoring other men as well, because a lot of men come to me for advice and they want to talk to me about a few things, and that's great. But I always encourage them to ditch the alpha mentality and start living like a masculine, mission-driven Omega. And that's what we all should be doing. We should be striving to be more and better. And that's always okay. In fact, it's not more than okay. You should be doing it. And if you surround yourself with men who are stuck in the past, who kind of keep pulling you back to the old version of who they want you to be, then, you've got to start eliminating the dead wood and thinking, I need to level up. And how can I level up? And I've got to start making new friends and hanging out in different circles and going to different places, taking up new hobbies and things like that. But it's always a difficult thing to do. But it's what we all need to be doing as men. We can't stay in the same place. That is alpha. If you are stuck in the same mindset that you had when you were 17 and 18 and 19, or as a young man going through university or whatever it is that you were doing, your apprenticeship, and you have not changed one single bit, then you are a fine example of what alpha is. So what we've got to be doing is we have to start thinking, how can we be more and better? And men don't usually reach that kind of drive, I guess, until their late 30s, early 40s. I know I did. And when I spoke to a coach about it, not that I was getting coached, but I was talking to a friend of mine who was a coach at the time, and he said that's when most men do change. It's their late 30s, early 40s. But anyway, I'll talk about what the Omega mentality is in a second, because I want to share this social media post that I put up this morning, which is Saturday the 13th of September. And it goes like this: the endless pursuit of Omega. Men are born with a hunger for closure. We want the last word, the final battle, the ultimate seal. We look to Omega, the end, the boundary marker, the closure of the cycle, as if it is something we can grip with both hands and hold forever. But the irony is this: the true Omega is never reached. Omega is not annihilation. It is not the collapse into nothingness. It is the point of completion, fulfillment, and transformation into the next order. Where Alpha bursts forth in raw beginnings, Omega closes the circle with solemnity. It is the seal that says, this chapter is done, this law is fulfilled, this path is completed. It is the great boundary marker of life's cycles, the reminder that nothing stands still. Men crave Omega because we crave definition. We want battles to end, debts to be settled, accounts to be closed. We want to know where the story concludes so we can finally rest. This is why so many of us chase closure in relationships, in business, in purpose. We want that ultimate punctuation mark at the end of our sentence. But life withholds it. The Omega is not an arrival point. It is a passage. The moment a man thinks he has reached the end, another door cracks open. Another cycle demands his strength. Another test of endurance begins. Omega is like the horizon. It draws you forward, it gives you direction, but it recedes as you march. The closer you think you are to the end, the more you realize. The end was just a transformation into something greater. And that is the end. That's the end of a little post that I made this morning. So there you go. In a nutshell, Omega is the passage. It is the endless pursuit of excellence. It is the endless pursuit of greatness. Now, a lot of people have asked me, where did I get this Omega mentality thing from? Well, there's a lot of places. There's not just one particular source that I get my information from, but there is one place that I drew most of my inspiration from for always seeking greatness and always seeking to be more and better, or a better example of who I am, and always striving to be somebody that's, I can be proud of, and that my mother would be proud of. The people that I am leading at the moment are proud of. There's always something that is driving me forward and pulling me forward, and there's certain things that I do use as fuel, but there was one place that inspired me to do this, or one person in particular, and that man was Hanshi Howard Lippman, who was a 9th Dan in Kyokushin Karate. And he was a great man because he used to plant little seeds quite often. He would talk in parables and riddles, and it was a constant. I wouldn't say it was doing your head in, but you're like, what's he trying to say to me? And you always went away, and it wasn't. Sometimes it was like an hour. Sometimes it was 10 minutes later, and you'd look at him, and he'd kind of give you a wink and point at you, and you knew that he knew that you picked it up and that you got it, and it was like a light bulb moment. It was quite funny because that used to happen quite often leading up to the last time I ever saw Hanshi alive. But it was quite funny because sometimes it would happen within a minute. He would say something and I'd look at him and he'd just sort of wink. Other times it took 2 years. I can remember he would tell me something at one seminar. I'd fly back to Brisbane. I'd be, living my best life, doing my thing. And all of a sudden, I just have this light bulb moment where I'd remember what he said, and I'd have to get onto the phone. It was either straight away, or I'd jump on the phone that night, and I'd say to him, "Remember that time you told me this?" And he'd go, "Yeah, I remember." And I'd be like, "I get it." Not in those words, but he certainly knew that I got what he was trying to tell me. And the way that he used to mentor you was amazing. He would never pull you up. It wasn't his job to pull you up because that weight is too heavy. He would always wait for you to come to him to be mentored. You can't mentor somebody who doesn't want to be mentored or who doesn't think they need to be mentored. And that was Hanshi. So that is the place where I drew inspiration from for the path towards being an Omega, I guess. But it's also something he used to say in Kyokushin Karate during training quite often, and it was, a light bulb moment literally every time he said this, because I knew exactly what he meant. It was always about the pursuit of perfection. And he used to say to us all, not just me, but everybody that he mentored, everybody that he taught, because he had a lot of black belts and he had a lot of students, but he used to say one thing quite often, and that was, our job, especially as martial arts instructors, is to always seek perfection. But the irony is knowing that we never reach it. And that is something that sticks with me, whether it's, in a day job, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's teaching Kyokushin Karate, whether it's teaching Maoko Kai Karate, which I've changed into. RAMMFIT, this podcast series, podcast series is a great example. It's something that absolutely terrifies me. And when I started, I was the best example of what an alpha is. I was like, I think I've got to be somebody great. I've got to start, being a bit aggressive on the microphone and things like that. And it was dead set alpha. But as I sort of kept going along my path, I could see where I needed to improve and what I needed to do to be better. And, I'm still evolving. I'm getting better. And even this podcast episode, I still think that they suck. It's amazing, and they probably do. You're probably sitting here going, this guy sucks. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? It's like a constant battle where you think you're never getting anywhere and you're not doing any good. But each podcast episode that I put out, I know that I'm getting better, and I'm constantly striving for greatness. I'm constantly striving to be more and better. And that's what you should be doing in your life. Instead of being stuck in the alpha mentality where you think you know it all, you're entitled, you're young, you think you're smart, you think you're unbreakable, and that's a good mindset to be in. But it's, there's a lot of ego there as well. And that is what the alpha mentality is. It's about ego. It's getting validation from the people that you've surrounded yourself with, whether it's people at the gym, whether it's girls, whether it's, the beta males that you've got around you. Alphas always need to be validated, and that is where they draw their power. But the Omega is different because they're not looking to be liked. They're not looking to be popular. They're not looking to be part of the herd. They don't think like the herd. They are doing their own thing. They are wanting to be more and better. They want to be a better version of who they are, not who society wants to tell them they should be. So that is the job of every man on this planet, is to not follow the herd. It's not to be who you think society wants you to be. It's not being who your siblings, who your parents, who your family, who your culture wants you to be. It's being the best version of you can possibly be, if that makes sense. Being the alpha is always striving to be more and better in every possible way. We can talk about this all day. It doesn't matter what principles, what endeavors you apply it to. Omega mentality fits the whole lot. It fits everything. It's not the destination. It is the passage. It is the journey. It is the path. It is the difficult work of creating your own wave and forging your own path forward. That is what the Omega mentality is. It's ditching the alpha mentality where, we're young and stupid, and we're ignorant and we're stupid, and we need validation, and we need to look good, and we need to, it's great to look good. I'm not saying don't look good. I'm just saying you shouldn't be seeking validation from people who don't even know who they are, what they want, or where they're going. That's the problem. Being an Omega means solitude, I guess. It's not that you don't need people. It's that you don't need people to, as a source of power. You are your own source of power. You know who you are. You know what you want. You know what you're striving for. You know where you're going. You know who you want to be. And that is where you're heading. You are constantly creating yourself. And you know that you will never get there. That's the irony. We never quite reach it. I've heard people say in the esoteric systems and the esoteric world that the only time a man reaches an Omega is when they die. And obviously we're not conscious. We're not alive in this physical world. So we don't know that we have reached the Omega. But that's when they say men reach Omega consciousness, is when we're dead. We have reached the final seal. We have closed the chapter. There's the ultimate punctuation mark. We're finished. We're done. So that is Omega. But throughout our life, we don't stop living, and we don't stop trying, and we don't stop striving to be more and better just because we are going to die. And as Robert Greene said, the art of Stoicism is the art of learning how to die well, which paradoxically teaches you how to live. And that is a fascinating quote, because it is what the Omega mentality kind of is all about. It is, knowing that we are going to die, so we are going to live the best possible life we can live before we leave this planet. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's not about thinking that you are better than anybody else. And that's what a lot of alphas don't quite get. I get attacked constantly about men who kind of think, they're kind of trying to gaslight me, and they're letting me know this and that, and they're sending me articles and shit that kind of, debates or they try to, what's the word? They try to make me look bad with things that validate the way that they think at this point in time. And it doesn't quite work because I'm so far ahead on my path of personal evolution that I did this shit back in 1986. It's not about being better than anybody else. The Omega mentality is about being secure in who you are, knowing what you want, you know where you're going, and you're putting steps in to get there. You're not following the herd. You're not being programmed and conditioned by the mainstream media and things like that. We can go on about this all day, but Omega mentality doesn't mean that you are better than anybody else. What it means is you are striving to be a better example of who you were yesterday. And if you're somebody like me who's on the path of personal evolution constantly, weekly, monthly, yearly, you are evolving every single fucking day. And it shows, because the person you were yesterday is a completely different person to who you are going to be tomorrow and who you are at this point in time. You're constantly striving to be a better version of you, nobody else. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. Look forward to bringing you another episode as soon as I possibly can, which should be within the next week. Until then, take care, and I will talk to you soon.